You probably suck at using this thing, so today I'm going to give you a comprehensive guide on how to use a line trimmer, whippersnipper, weed whacker, whatever you want to call it. Now, why do I feel qualified to give you this sort of advice? I don't really, but I make viral lawn mowing videos, and the number one question I get is about line trimming. So hopefully we can help you out today. I know for a fact my number one tip will help you for sure. Now I'm going to be showing you everything today on the sort of machine you probably do have at home. This is a Ryobi battery 18 volt machine. Now, if you already have 18 volt Ryobi batteries, you can get this skin for $299. If you don't, $429 gets you the skin, charger, and battery. Now let's take this thing out the back where I've been growing an edge for quite a while just to make this video. Because this is really a beginner's guide, I'm going to start right at the beginning and what we need. Obviously, we need a line trimmer. Hello, Maggie. As far as safety gear goes, you do you, but I think if you aren't wearing, at the very least, a pair of safety glasses while line trimming, I think you are just asking to be blind. The glasses for me while line trimming are an absolute non-negotiable. Now, I always trim at home in shorts. I know this stuff is clean, there's nothing in it, there's no rocks or anything, but if I'm trimming somewhere and I don't know what's in the grass, or there's a lot of rocks, I'll definitely be wearing some pants. Now, these things are a game changer. Get yourself a pair of slip-on boots that you love, and I guarantee you'll just be out in the garden more because you can just slip these things on. They're your work boots. You go out, you're just motivated to do more outdoor work. I just wear these Blundstones because they're really comfortable for me. I've also got the Blundstone gaiters here. They're really great at keeping the grass off your socks when you're trimming. You just can't avoid it, unfortunately. These are a waxed cotton, so they handle the moisture well as well. Again, not necessary, but who wants grass all over their socks? So you've got all your gear, and you're now probably wondering what magical line I use because people seem to think that's the thing that changes everything. There's nothing special about the line I use. It's just, on this machine, it's just 2mm round line. Normally, while I'm doing my overgrown jobs, I'll probably use 2.7mm round line. There's nothing special about it. It's just how you use it. Now, what's going to be right for your machine will depend on what machine it is. Obviously, those really entry-level stuff, some of those can only do like 1.6mm. In my opinion, at that point, I'd say upgrade your trimmer because you're never going to enjoy doing it. I've used those things and yeah, it can get the job done. But if you use something with just a little bit of power, like this is only a 300 Australian dollar machine, and it's got plenty of power for a DIY user. Just at home, I think 2.4mm line is more than enough. It'll get you through some thicker stuff, but still be crispy enough. At home, sometimes I do like to go for the 2mm just because it gets a little bit of a crispier finish. Now, I'm going to show you how to reload these machines. That's another thing that really seems to annoy people. Now, as far as rewinding the line goes, there's generally a couple of types of heads. You've got these old sort of standard ones where you take the cap off, you take the spool off, and you reload that yourself. Or the better option is these speed feed type heads where you don't have to take the cap off. You just poke the line through the head, pull it out evenly, and then you can rewind it much quicker, much easier. I'll show you that type first. Now, you can still take the caps off these if you do get into trouble or the line breaks off or something. I'm taking it off now, obviously, so I can take all the line off. So you got your head here, line here. As you can see on this one here, there's an arrow there and an arrow there. So you've got to align those first. They're now aligned. That tells us that we can poke the line straight through. You should be able to even look through the eyelet and see light through the end. Comes out very easy. Then you just get it on the ground, get both sides of the line even, and then on this machine you just wind this in the direction indicated, which is that way. You can do it by hand like that, but this Ryobi also comes with a little tool that slips on there like that, and you can do it even quicker. That's actually really good design. I do like that. If you are a home user, very handy. So that's the speed feed, very easy to use as you can see there. I hate that the entry-level machines have the old, difficult to rewind ones. It doesn't sort of make sense because it's generally those users that will struggle with reloading it. More and more machines are adopting these now, which is a good thing. Now, the next one I'm going to show you is this traditional style where you take the cap off. There's a couple of tabs there. Push it in, pull it off. There we go, bit of grass debris coming out. Now you've got your spool here. Imagine there's no line on this. Keep in mind the orientation that you take these things off. So here is our spool that we're going to rewind. It indicates to us that we wind the cord that way. So we're going to put some 2mm line on this spool. Oh, get the two ends of the line and don't get them right together at the end. I like to leave about 10 centimeters, one a bit longer, and I'll show you why at the end. Then find the middle of the line and we get a nice little loop like that. And I like to sort of crimp the end of that line a little bit just with my fingers, which helps here. Then we get our spool, find out which way we've got to wind it, which is this way. There's a little notch in there where you put that loop over, and then I put a finger in there and just wind it round like that, and that does both sides at the same time. Nice and even. Now this is where that shorter end comes in handy. So snap off the shorter end first into one of these little notches here like that, and then wind the other end, the longer end, round to the next one, and then you'll get a roughly even bit of line on each side. That's re-spooled there. Then in this case we get our cap and we drop that spool into there. Look for the eyelets and just snap that down into there like that. Do the same on the other side. That holds it in place, and then all we need to do is pop this back on, and that's ready to go. There's a bit more mucking around with it, which is why I recommend for most people a speed feed style head, but you've got your line and you're ready to go. Okay, so here we are, we've got a nice overgrown edge here. Now the first mistake I see people make is letting their edges go too long. This is too long. It's going to make your job harder already. Best advice I can give you, just go over it once every couple of weeks and you're just nicking it off. Takes very little time, and that's going to eliminate most of the issues you have because the machine's barely working at that point. Trust me, you will enjoy it a lot more too. If they do get to this point though, we can still get through them, no issues. It's just going to take a little bit longer and a little bit more technique. So we've got our overgrown edge here. First thing we're going to do is trim before we mow. The reason for that is you're going to make a mess all over the concrete here. Once you've edged it, blow it back onto the lawn. Then when you mow, that's going to clean all of that up. Now the next thing you've got to work out, are you going to cut it horizontally first, meaning like this, or are you going to cut it vertically first, meaning like that? Really, it doesn't matter, do whatever works for you, but I like to do a vertical first, then a horizontal pass to make it nice and level. Now this machine is designed to be used like this, in this manner. It feels natural, and I've seen a lot of people, and even I do this when the edge is really overgrown. I'll chew it out horizontally first, like this. Which can get rid of a lot of the bulk of the edge there and then make it easier when you do your vertical. That's not really necessary for this because they're not really that overgrown, but I have seen people just edge like that, but it's very hard to get a nice crispy line like that. So if you are going to trim it up like that first, try and do a vertical at the end of it. It's going to look so much cleaner. Now the way we do the vertical is by flipping this thing upside down. Now you're going to have to work out what works for you. Everyone does this differently. For me, I feel that when I rest my forearm on the bottom like that, then hold the handle that way, I have great control. I then walk backwards like this. A lot of people will say don't do that, but it works for me. I've seen people walk forwards, obviously. I've seen people hold them like this over their shoulder. I've seen people walk sort of really awkwardly looking like this. You just got to work out what's comfortable for you and work on that. Now, if you haven't done this before, it's probably going to activate some muscles that you don't normally use. So your muscles are probably fatigued. You might get a little bit of pain actually. That's completely normal. The more you practice it, the more your muscles will build up for that action and the easier it gets. Like for me, I'm holding this away from the body, and while it's not an extremely heavy thing, if you're holding it for a while, you're really activating some muscles there. So if you are getting a bit of muscle pain after it, it's not out of the ordinary. So you've worked out how you want to hold it. The next thing is to be mindful of where you're throwing debris. Now on this machine, it's going to be rotating that way, so it's going to be throwing debris that way. There's no windows or anything like that there, so we've got no risk. Now whether you start on the concrete side or the grass side, again, is up to you. A lot of people have different opinions on that. For me, ideally, I like to be on the grass side because of the way I hold this machine. The line's at a tiny bit of an angle this way, which means once I've done my vertical, it's sloping back a tiny bit this way as opposed to that way. That gets me a better result. Again, whatever works for you. So we're about to start trimming, and I want you to focus on just using the last 10 millimeters of the line. Use the tip of it. Think of it like a razor blade that's going to slice through the grass. I don't want you throwing this whole line in there because it'll flip and flop around and eventually break off, and that's frustrating because then you've got to pull the head apart. And yeah, you just don't want that. But that's my number one tip for line trimming. If you just focus on using the tip, that's going to solve most of your problems, I guarantee it. Once I was told that tip, it totally changed the way I was able to trim. So I can't stress it enough. Just focus on putting that last 10 millimeters into the grass. So we've got our grip on the machine. We know that we're going to use the tip of the line. We haven't even started yet though, and this is where people can start to get wavy. What I find works best for me is to try and keep moving, but go slowly, if that makes sense. I find if you stop and start, the machine tends to go like that, and then you get really jagged edges. If you can stay as fluid as possible but go slowly, that's going to get you the best results. Sometimes there's thicker bits that you're going to have to sit on for a bit longer, and that's where the danger can come from moving it around and gouging the edge out a bit, but it's not the end of the world if that happens. Grass grows back, so don't be too hard on yourself if you have some mistakes while you're trying this. You're only going to get better the more you do it. So we're going to try and put all that together now. Hopefully it works, hopefully I don't look stupid. I'm going to try and sight the edge on this side here, which I can on this machine with my grip. Then I can see what I'm doing. Get it spinning up at full speed, and then put it down in there. Maggie, wait for your dog to run away because she's an idiot. Full speed, gently put it in there, just the tip, and we're going to move along there slowly. And there we go, that's a pretty good result. Sometimes you'll leave some thicker runners like that, that's just hanging on by a thread. Whenever there's a bit of extra growth here, I'll always do a double pass on it anyway, just because it satisfies my OCD needs. So I'll do that now. The next pass is obviously a lot easier. So that edge is set now. I don't want any of the commercial guys out there going, oh, you wouldn't do it twice. We're talking about in DIY situations, or where you're setting an edge. And by setting an edge, I mean getting that little groove in there that then next time, in a week or two, because you're going to be doing this more often now, you can just come and hit that groove. It's just going to nick the grass off and be so much easier. But there's no shame in doing a double pass. Now you'll notice I didn't bump that the whole time, and we're still at pretty much the extent of the line because we're just using the tip. It's not like hitting the concrete here and just wearing it away super quickly, which I find a lot of people have trouble with. And that was some thickish edging there we were getting through, but we still barely used any line because the technique was right. Now when your line's worn down a bit like this, as you can see, you want to get a bit more line out using the bump feature on this. All you have to do is rev up the machine, then bump it on the grass. Now if you do bump a little bit too much out like this, so don't be worried about the noise there. All that is, on the guard here, there's a cutter for the line. When it gets to the desired length, it'll nip it off. Makes a bit of noise, don't be scared of that. Now this isn't a super powerful machine. It is a DIY 18 volt machine. I actually like it for home use. Like, it's got plenty enough power, as you can see, to get through this sort of stuff. And as far as maintenance goes, more than enough power. Now the next thing we're going to do is a float pass to get it nice and even across the top there. You should find this a bit easier. Now same thing, if you can keep moving and keep fluid, it's going to make it easier. You're going to get a more consistent result and less gouging. Gouging happens every now and then. Sometimes it'll get caught up in some longer grass and pull it in. Just try and avoid that as much as possible. But like I said earlier, it's not the end of the world. Grass grows back. No one's perfect. Except you, you're beautiful. So just very easy, just floating across there. Now let's blow that off and see the result. Try and blow all the excess grass debris out of that groove too, gets you a much nicer finish. Now very easy to see from back here what we had and what we now have. Nice clean edge for you. We've got a groove now that we can follow. The more often you do it, the easier it'll get and the better you'll get with that machine. If you're just pulling it out once a month or once every 2 months, your muscles won't be used to it. You won't be able to hold it steady. I'll continue doing this edge, see if I can butcher it on camera, just to show you that no one's perfect. Also, you can see all that grass debris there that I said, blow that back on, the mower's gonna eat all that up. So we got through that without having to bump, but I don't know if you could hear, but you can hear the sound of it change. I can hear it before I feel it, and that would be ready for a bump after that. It was a bit thicker down there, a few more runners, thick runners that it had to get through, but still, that's not a lot of line used. Something else when you're doing a horizontal pass, depending on the head type that you've got, a lot of the new speed feeds are quite flat across the bottom there. Some of these have a bit of a knob like that. I find if you put it on a little bit of an angle, it stops that knob getting caught up in the grass. Just play around with it, do what works for you. Now this hasn't taken long and we're setting it, so if you're doing this once every couple of weeks, it's going to take even less time, but it just makes the place look so much tidier. So hopefully that helped you out in some little way. I don't profess to be an expert, but that's how I do it. That's what I've learned. It seems to get me decent results. Happy to hear your tips in the comments though. I know I'll get a lot of questions about this. What line trimmer is it? It's the Ryobi One Plus HP 18 volt from their Whisper series, but focus more on the technique and what I've told you rather than the machine and what line that's in it. If it did help you at all, give us a follow or subscribe because we look at plenty of outdoor power equipment. Until then, we'll see you in the next one.